and we are transitioning into a fireside chat of the season.
Sort
Welcome to the
of.
show, back Landis.
This is. Come on, Julia. You know me. I don't do fireside chats. We have conversations.
Oh,
Coffee
let
talk.
me, yeah, coffee talk.
Yeah, coffee talk. Coffee talk. Exactly. Exactly.
So I guess I can introduce you now as the CRO and co-founder of StoryPath.
I mean, you kind of can. I mean, we're kind of yeah, we're quietly coming out of stealth mode, if you will.
Awesome. And we have Katie Nocerino. Correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, but I believe I pronounced it right. GTM at One Mind. And we have a session here that our community was so excited about, rewiring the mess in the middle of GTM. John, welcome.
Hello.
What's up, Johnny?
Hey.
I
Yeah,
was
excited for
Julia.
this.
Julia was quietly leaking this idea that we started this little company called StoryPath, which is pretty cool.
I think this was your soft launch. Here we are.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of. I mean,
Right
Katie,
up
it's only
the heart.
appropriate because we were all together in Santa Monica, what, like 3, 4 months ago when it was still, we were super stealth.
There you go. Yeah, excited to see how far you've come.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I'll put
Uh,
the background here. Sorry. There we go.
uh, it's all good. Cool. Well, why don't we kick it off? We'll kick it off with some just quick intros and give everyone a little background. Katie, I'm sure everybody already knows who you are because everybody knows what One Mind is all about. So why don't we start with you, and then John, I'll tell a little bit about our background, and then we'll kick it off. I have some really fun, interesting questions for us because this isn't a fireside chat. This is just a fun coffee talk about AI and the world of go to market in the messy middle.
Yes, grab your beverage of choice and let's get into it.
Yeah,
Very
all,
excited to
all of
be.
our friends in Europe, like you can have a pint. It's cool, no biggie.
Yeah, exactly. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So excited to be here. I am Katie Nocerino, and yeah, I hope that everyone knows about One Mind. If you don't already, you will soon today. But I lead the go-to-market team here at One Mind. I've spent the last 15 years or so in go-to-market tech, starting with Responsis back when we were addressing the campaign canvas, and then moving on to Oracle Marketing Cloud, Eloqua, worked abroad in Sydney, and then most recently at Sixth Sense, where we were really laser focused on helping customers find buyers with predictive analytics and intent data. And now, after many years of obsessing over how to improve the customer journey and helping companies scale as efficiently as possible, I couldn't be more thrilled about what we're building here at One Mind. So, quick plug, we are creating what we call go-to-market superhumans. So they look, sound, and engage like a human, but the difference being that they're on 24/7. They have no capacity limitations. They are highly skilled and can go very deep on all of your products and services, and they can be trained to play multiple different roles across the go-to-market. So whether that's a seller that is your best SDR and salesperson on the top of funnel, a solutions engineer that's in deal rooms or addressing the messy middle, which we will talk about in depth today, or post sale, engaging the long tail where you can't really justify putting a human, or supporting your customers. There's a lot of exciting opportunity to help companies just scale. So thrilled to be there. And yeah, excited to chat today.
It's so interesting as you were talking about all the different use cases. I was like, wow, that actually makes a ton of sense because how when we're asleep, who's working? Well, I guess Mindy is. Mindy's working no matter what, especially when you're a small company like ours. We're like when eventually we go to sleep, which is usually for John it's like 4 in the morning, but
Right.
from 4 to 7, right? There's a good little window where Mindy could help.
Yeah, and part of the messy middle, like people, it's not their full-time job to evaluate software. It's usually after hours. It's on the weekends. So
Yeah,
we'll do it. But yes, to your point, that's exactly right.
that's a good point. John, what's up, buddy? Tell everybody who you
Yeah.
are
Hey.
and what is
So
StoryPath.
great to meet everybody. I'm John Brunswick, the CEO and co-founder of StoryPath. And I've spent my entire career figuring out the most compelling ways to communicate and share these technology solutions with buyers. And along that journey, it's led me into areas related to behavioral science, deep into technology and how companies are actually using it to align to their business needs. And StoryPath looks at taking that difficult, messy middle and giving us essentially a GPS to help us navigate it. Something that, at first, you think about the first time we all used GPS, it was a strange and novel experience, but soon we used it to go to the shopping mall up the street, and we're asking ourselves, wow, why did I throw GPS on for this? But the further you go and the more complex your route, it becomes really, really important to have that expert guidance. And so if you think about the whole area of guided selling and allowing people to communicate in the most compelling way possible across that, that's what StoryPath's all about.
Rad. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Doug Landis, co-founder of StoryPath with John. It's something we've been working on for a while. We're not really well, we're live. We're in market. Go to storypath.ai and check it out. I'm a sales professional wrapped in a marketer's body that has been thinking about storytelling probably since I was 5 years old and took my first acting class. And, this whole notion of like story is, I fundamentally believe in this world where product parity exists across every industry. I don't care what industry you are. The truly what differentiate you as a seller and as a human is both trust and story. That's my core thesis. And that's our core thesis at StoryPath. That's what we're all about. But this isn't about StoryPath. This isn't so much about one mind. This is about our thoughts on the messy middle and where AI technology can actually really fit into the world of go-to-market. Before I get to the first question, I want to share something that I read this morning. Actually, it's a study from OpenAI's economic research. They did an economic research study, and they found it's crazy, a staggering 70% of all consumer GPT conversations as of July this year were not related to work. What were the most common things that were related to work? Writing, of course, all of our marketers. Yep, there you go. BDRs, AI, SDRs are writing, using technology to write. But that's dwarfed by the number of queries that are related to personal guidance and information seeking. It's like the new Google, which is really crazy. And so if you think about that, I believe like this economic discourse that we're all worried that AI is going to augment or automate our jobs away, maybe it's not as accurate as the way in which we're using AI technology for personal decision making. And so the interesting thing is they broke down the categories of interactions, and I think it's appropriate for the messy middle that we're about to talk about here. And what they found is most of the users using ChatGPT are doing three things: asking, seeking information and advice, like, okay, what objections might I potentially face? What do I need to know about this customer? What questions should I ask in this conversation? Doing, where they're actually requesting a tangible output, like write an email, write some code, summarize something, whether like if you're using Gemini or Notebook. And then expressing, which is a personal reflection of joy. And so what's really interesting is like basically AI is playing this role as like an advisor. And so if you think about, kind of AI technology and go-to-market in the messy middle, it begs the question, is there a there? Like, does AI have a place in the messy middle? And before we kind of launch into that question, I think it makes more sense for us to kind of define the messy middle. So I'd be curious to how you both kind of define the messy middle and like what pictures come to mind so we can get on the same page.
Yeah, I'll hop in there. I think the messy middle is like when you're thinking about these complex, consultative, often B2B cycles, it can get really convoluted. I mean, not only do you have a million different questions coming at you from 10, 15, 20 stakeholders, I mean, there's also reps. I kind of define the messy middle being human inflicted, like self-inflicted. It's true. We withhold information. We're desperate to maintain control. We throw FUD around at our competition. We plant landmines. We do all these things to just make people so confused and like overwhelmed. And like I said earlier, it's not their full-time job to evaluate software. So
Totally.
end up just like almost by design, unintentionally, but like we're all kind of as sellers like trained to go do these things, run all the different plays, like go methodically surround the buying groups. And it makes it really tough to buy software. And so I think that is what explodes in the middle of a cycle. It's just this like insane amount of information. You don't know who to trust or what to believe. And so I think of that as the messy middle, where it is really challenging to think about like, okay, how do I, I'm so desperate for control, but how do I now wrangle this all in and try to have an impact on the outcome, the decision? So that is kind of what comes to mind for me when I think about it.
Katie, that's so crazy how I think oftentimes we think of the messy middle as like it's buyer driven or buyer led because of the complexity on their side. But one of the things you just called out is the fact like, oh no, sellers kind of make it really dirty, if you will. They like make it really messy. And so that's a great another angle and perspective about this for this conversation. John, what's your thought on the messy middle?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a hot take here that's maybe a little atypical. I see huge opportunity in the messy middle, and here's why. Think about everything that is expected in a sales process. That's happening in every cycle. As products race to parity, we're looking at two things when we look at vendors. Do I trust these people? And do I want to work with these people? And in the messy middle, when things get dynamic, when they get challenging, that's actually our opportunity to shine and demonstrate that we deeply care about the buyer. And that's actually where I'm so excited for AI technology, because I think we finally have a story to tell in a way that can make a difference, where classically you just needed to maybe phone that expert and see if they were available. So I just see a lot of room for success and for new wins because of the messy middle.
So interesting. You both highlighted trust as like a core element to this middle, whatever kind of mess is created, whether by its rep or buyer or situation or economics. But trust is such an important element. I think the complexity in the middle itself is the fact that Katie, you alluded to this, tons of stakeholders. So I fundamentally believe one of the issues in the messy middle is problem alignment. Everybody has different priorities, right? So you're talking to your buyers and you've got every deal over $10,000, there's 10 to 15 people involved in buying decision. You got to get everybody aligned on the problem and how they define it. And how does that fit in their priorities? And so, building that level of trust is so critically important. Katie, I'm curious, like when you see, like, first of all, I guess, where do you see deals most often getting stuck? And then how do you unstick it? How do you unstick deals? And by the way, can Mindy help? Give you a little
Mindy is
plug.
our superhuman. For those that don't know that, every company we work with gets to, brand their own superhuman.
Oh,
Mindy's,
rad.
and my God, she is the best solutions engineer, unsticker, if we'll call her that. Yes, she absolutely helps to compress our cycles. I think they get stuck where we buyers underestimate the amount of resources, time, effort that it takes to truly evaluate software, and like the amount of people they have to get pulled in to get
Yeah.
consensus to move forward. So where and it's funny you mentioned trust, because I always get asked like, oh, will people trust AI? AI is less biased than a human, a seller who with commission on the other side of things. So like, defining trust could be a topic probably in and of itself, but I would say that for us, like Mindy helps to compress cycles because she's available 24/7 and has deeply technical knowledge of our own product and our case studies and all of the FAQs and our pitch decks and all of that in her brain. And so the number of times we see executive stakeholders that still don't want to talk to us or can meet, but in 3 weeks, they go talk to her on a Wednesday at 11 p.m. when my reps are sleeping. That's critical. We see them upload their requirements, upload their business case, go ideate on different problems that we can solve, and she is crushing those conversations and then nicely packages it up for the reps. They wake up in the morning and it's like, oh my goodness, that was the call I was supposed to have in 3 weeks. We managed to get that done. So it's about meeting the buyers where they are when they're ready, because
Yeah.
the second you
Totally.
needing to align calendars, herd cats, all of that is like time kills deals. We all know that. So I think it's just a matter of like, how can you meet them in the moment they're ready, whenever that may be, across 15 different stakeholders. Like that's where for us, the magic starts to unfold.
That's pretty awesome. I think what's interesting, I think in the world of AI technology and when it comes to trust, it's more about accuracy of information versus, like you're right, a rep, they've got maybe they have some ulterior motives because they really need that commission, to pay their rent. So it is more a matter, it feels like it's more a matter of accuracy of information. So John, I'm curious from a technology perspective, because you are the one that built StoryPath for us, God bless you. Why do you think technology has avoided tackling this part of the funnel? The reality is, if you look at most of the world of go-to-market technology, it's all focused on top of the funnel, which I would argue is relatively easy. No offense to all of our friends that are in the world of building AI tech for go-to-market, but it's like there's a lot of pattern recognition. Like, okay, we know the companies you want to target. That's your ICP. We know your buyer personas. Now let's craft some emails. Let's follow a pattern, whether it's why you now or whatever it is. Why is the middle so much harder, and why are people why have people kind of somewhat avoided it, I guess?
Sure. Well, if we think back to where SaaS anchors itself, it's anchored in data and process. And when you have technology that is delivering something for data and process, how do you measure and work with it? In two ways: activities and assets. But back to talking about trust and engaging with buyers, we know those critical moments where we genuinely earn a level of trust that we rightfully earned. It's because we were able to communicate and frame things in a really dynamic, challenging situation. And the only tool that we had was our gut and kind of our own personal pattern recognition. And so I think in this era of all of this new technology, we, for the first time, if you go deep into it and look at how you can use it in novel and innovative ways, you can actually get to a point where you're solving data and process problems that were previously unsolvable, right?
Mm.
So if we look at companies, for example, like Cursor that does development, or Harvey for legal, these are companies that didn't just wrapper an LLM. They looked at using these as the foundation to genuinely create something that could deliver net new value. And I think this is the point that we're at in these middle of funnel technologies, where for the people that are truly going deep and looking at how far can we press these technologies, we actually have the ability to deliver value that we just couldn't before. So it's a really exciting time, because I would argue that, as you said, the messy middle is the most challenging.
Yeah.
And you need something of a certain quality to actually deliver the right solution.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I were talking about this yesterday, about the notion of like what Harvey does is really, it takes on a whole workload. It's almost like basically creating a full lawyer on its own. You could argue that we do this, something similar at StoryPath in the world for revenue teams. What's interesting though is then everybody's like, oh no, is AI going to take away my job? But based on the study that I just shared with you earlier, we're not there yet. Are we going to be there in 5 years? Probably, but we'll see what happens in 5 years. It feels like right now a lot of organizations are kind of really indexing on speed, right? Speed and efficiency, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to use AI so I can drive more efficiency. We can do more faster. What's the cost though? It feels like the cost of focusing on speed and efficiency is quality and depth. Do you think organizations, this is for both of you, are organizations over indexing on kind of speed and efficiency, and are we losing the sense of quality and depth?
I would say what we're seeing really commonly is that everyone now knows they need to implement AI, but it's more like, let's just tell our teams, everyone go use AI. And now we're at this like sprawl of too much AI, and it's all really inconsistent. It's all unregulated, and everyone's off doing their own thing. So I think we're now kind of coming to this inflection point of, and to your point, like, yes, there might be an increase in speed, but from a quality standpoint, it's starting to get diminished, or it's just getting really inconsistent. You think about a field team with hundreds of sellers. You can't have everyone going and building separate business cases in Gamma.
Totally.
I love Gamma, but giving it the ability to go, create bespoke business cases all over the place. It's awful for your brand, your narrative, the company, everything. So
Totally.
yeah, so I think we're now at this inflection point where it's more around, as leaders, we have to make the decisions. We have to regulate what's happening. There has to be consistency across the field. And I think there's always going to be a balance of speed and quality. AI enables both, but it just has to be thought through. It has to be intentional. And I think there's also this shift from being okay with incremental gains to now, like, well, no, with agentic AI, we need to actually have AI that has a seat at the table. It makes decisions. It's a part of the team, and it can drive real impact. So,
Right. Totally. Yeah. We'll talk about agentic here in a second, because I tend to agree with you. Agentic kind of introduces a whole new layer of potential quality and speed at the same time. But John, I'm curious your take on this, because we've talked a lot about, like there's speed and efficiency, but without quality, like it goes back to trust. Like if you deliver information to a rep that they don't fully trust, if it's not sourced within the last 30 days, if it's like, if you're not sure where this is coming from or why it actually matters, then the reality is why is a rep going to actually buy into this and actually use it?
Yeah, well, I think what's interesting, what you just shared in my mind is actually the baseline. So if we think about the way that we're starting to use the technology, we upload a 10K, we write a prompt, and we get some data back. But the reality is that we need to take a full step back to reassess how we think about cost. And what I mean, classically, quality and speed were mutually exclusive. Like you kind of needed to pick one. In
Right.
the AI world, I'm actually going to argue that the best vendors are going to be able to deliver both to you, because just having, again, the answers, that's not actually the unlock. You need to go deeper and further. And when we think about quality, generally, again, that would be really expensive. But if you want to go fast, that is the only thing that's going to help you to punch through a noisy market. Quality is actually the accelerant, especially when you get in the same amount of time and the same level of actual cost.
Yeah. Yeah. We often talk about like, the difference between data and direction, right? So you can go into Chat GPT and ask it a thousand questions. You can build your own custom GPT or notebook, but that's just data. Like, what do you do with that? How does it guide you? How does it contextualize the data into something that is relevant to the opportunities that are in front of you, so you actually get the benefits? Right? I feel like we feel like there's a lot of benefit because we get all this information pushed to us using an LLM, but the reality is not going to go do something with that, and it's not giving me the actual contextualized action to go take. Right? It's just
I
like a
got
news article. It's just a news article for the sake of being a news article. Awesome.
I'm,
Thanks. You
I'm
helped me
gonna
find one.
I'm gonna layer on to that. I think, the first time we used ChatGPT, we all remember it. It was pretty freaking amazing, right? You type in a few things and you're like, oh my God, what have I unlocked here, right? But again, that the more that you looked at the results, the more that you really spent time, it wasn't wrong. But if you're an expert and you look at it, it's not quite right. And so this is an interesting kind of situation we're finding ourselves in. And again, I think that's why for every vendor that's going really deep into a specialty, they're going to provide clear and away better value.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift here and talk about the agentic shift. This is an agentic AI conversation here. And this is, I think, where there's real potential impact in this messy middle in the world of go-to-market. As we talk about, agentic AI, the first thing I want to do is just kind of define it and get kind of level set, right? So we're all kind of on the same page. Agentic AI, we can think of it as proactive powered AI approach, where generative AI is a reactive based on a user's input, right? So an example of generative AI use case is really all around like content creation and analysis. And then you've got agentic use cases are really focused on like decision making and problem solving. And I think about Mindy as an example as being like such a great use case or utilization of agentic AI capabilities. So if you strip away all the buzzwords and everyone gets already really confused, is it AI native? Is it agentic? Is it generative? Whatever it is, where does agentic AI actually fit into the go-to-market tech stack the best? Katie, that's I want to ask you.
Yeah. My take, great clarification. Thank you for that. My take is think about the outcomes. What are the outcomes we're trying to drive? If we can improve the buyer experience and we can drive impact for our customers and our own bottom line, great. Like, let's not talk about like defining the type of AI. Let's talk about what we're trying to do with it. So for us, I mean, it's pretty clear. It just needs to have a seat at the table, and the goal is to expand and scale exponentially beyond human capacity restraints. So I don't want to just focus on how do we make every human on the team that much more efficient, effective, productive. I want to think about how do we create an autonomous, in our world, a superhuman that can go scale well beyond that. Put them where we can't make we can't justify having a human. Like I said earlier, it's like the PLG motions, the SMB, the micro
Right.
segments. There are organizations that are so strapped. Like I just read a report that customer success is like where the most turnover is in every organization. And it's true. Everyone's tasked with doing so much. So we need to create AI that has a seat at the table. and can like really truly expand well beyond just making everyone that much more efficient.
Yeah. John, what's your take on the world of agentic AI? If you strip away the buzzwords, like where does it actually
Yeah.
fit in the go-to-market stack?
Well, I think I really agree with Katie, right? At the end of the day, it's about delivering the best outcome. And if we think about the scenario where, let's say it's toward the end of your fiscal, you finally got the big meeting with the key stakeholder and you get to pick up the bat phone, who are you dialing? That is the power of agentic. You don't say, I want the mid-tier player for this. I want the mid-tier player for... No, you want the absolute best in class for every facet of what you're bringing to the table. That is agentic. That's where the value really jumps up.
Right. So for reps, so interesting question here by our boy John Barrows. So if you think like I fundamentally believe that AI is a superpower for super seasoned reps, right? Gives you the business acumen, you can build on your experience, you can tap in your experience, you kind of know how to use the incredible nuggets of insight that AI can create for you. But let's talk about how it actually is maybe helping or shaping a junior rep, a newer rep, an SMB rep that is getting into their career. And I worry about these folks who are coming out of college. They're like, all right, I need to get my chops somewhere. I got Mindy and I are kind of competing for business. There's all these great tools that I could potentially use, to help me get booted up. How is AI helping junior reps? And by the way, does it matter if it's agentic or if it's generative or, a bolt on to a SaaS product?
I think that this might sound controversial, but like it can do the job of junior reps.
So what you're saying is we no longer need junior reps.
There's a bigger, conversation that needs to be happening around, do we need to spend more time up leveling them so that they can go have a more strategic role? AI can do the job. It does the job. It does the things the junior reps does. Like think about an integration with StoryPath that feeds those stories straight into a superhuman, and it's going to do a pretty dang good job. So, that's obviously a very big conversation. Not one that we're going to have in the next 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think going back to the point around, are we as leaders, or do we want to develop those people and have those roles because we believe in those roles and that's what we want to do and we just want to make them a little bit better? Or do we want to think about how we can augment our go-to-market entirely by uncovering where there's AI that can do the job and then repurpose those people and spend that money and those resources in up-leveling them? So it's a bigger conversation, I would say.
Yeah. And John, I'm curious your thoughts, because you and I have talked about the fact, like, well, what if you do replace the junior reps and you turn them into more like broader account managers? They're there to nurture the relationship, to shake hands, kiss babies, build that connection that is necessary that's necessary from a human perspective, because we buy from people that we like and we trust, right? And so we want that level of relationship. But John, I'm curious your take on this from a junior rep perspective.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this really brief. I think if we look back through history, we can see a number of reference points that directly map. I remember, this is going to date me. I was in college and Google came out and I started using it for computer science. Some people looked at that and they felt, is that cheating? You're going and kind of getting all the answers. So I think one of the biggest things with all this technology is the change management on the human side, and how we work will actually start to shift. The same thing happened with accountants when spreadsheets came around, right? What do I do now as an accountant? Last time I checked, there's still a bunch of accountants. So I think we have yet to kind of have the wave of change in how we work. And in a way, junior reps might almost be focused in a better direction because they're focused on the customer problem.
Yeah. Katie, I have a question for you. This is a build on this, actually. And then John, one last question about the Ferrari principle. So Katie, if we're going to replace the junior reps with a product or an agent like Mindy, how do the experienced reps, or how do we fill that gap for reps to become experienced reps? Do you know what I mean? Like, where do the experienced reps come from?
I think it was John Barrows that shared the original question, right? Maybe his role just got that much more important. Enabling people, like, they're going to get experience with experience. It's not necessarily fair to say that if you come from a small company that gets our junior reps, you're going to have you're the guinea pig. train them. I don't know, figure out another role for them. You mentioned account management. There's strategic BDR roles that I think will still exist. Like there's still definitely a place to farm your next level of talent, but I also think there's a lot out there in the form of enablement that can like help people up level, and it's going to continue to divide the workforce into like those that are really focused on their success and they have the grit, they have the determination to go become an experienced rep with just fewer at bats. And, we also as have to take some bets on people, maybe. I think there's a lot to still figure out, but yeah.
Hey, so John, last question in the last 30 seconds here. You talk a lot about this Ferrari principle, right? So I think a lot of companies right now are thinking like, oh, I can go build my own AI solution, my own agentic AI solution. Talk to us about like how that applies in the world of go-to-market and how they may want to think about build versus buy. And Julia, then we'll shut up.
We're in the early innings with this technology. And if we think about application servers, word processors, and CRMs, there was a point in time which companies actually built their own, but then they realized it wasn't a strategic advantage. And so if we think about race cars, they're trying to build the best vehicle. They don't build their own brakes. They don't build their own wiring systems or paint. They work with the best in class providers. And I don't know about you all, but I am not interested in the second fastest race car.
I think that's a really good place to end. We could talk for hours about this subject. The middle is complex. Agenta can certainly help, especially with One Mind and StoryPath at play. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you too. Thank you so much, Doug, Katie, and John. Doug, before we wrap this up, people want to know, can AI effectively tell stories?
We can help. Absolutely. So it's interesting. We actually run our product against Gemini and OpenAI. And I tell you, so I think there's a real difference between just data. So can OpenAI craft a story for you? Sure. Is it really contextualized about the opportunity or the person or the persona, the problems that they may be struggling with? No. So that's part of what we've built, right? Is this whole guided selling and storytelling platform that actually allows you to build stories on the fly, because story is truly the most human and effective way to communicate. So yeah, there's some nuance to the way in which you leverage these models to actually craft really, really compelling stories. And if you want to know more about it, just go check out storypath.ai. What?
That's it.
Awesome.
That's
and Katie,
so dumb.
can Mindy support that, replace that?
Honestly, she tells some really good stories. You ask her for analogies, examples, like she empathizes. It's Doug, you say people buy from people they like and trust. I think they buy from the companies that get them accurate information, empathize with them as quickly as they can. I think it's 78% of people buy from the company that reaches out and responds first. So
Ooh, that's it. Yeah. Speed, time kills all deals. I love it.
But
All right,
Thank you so much
we'll do a bake-off between Mindy and StoryPath and our stories that we
I
create.
think
Let's
there's
do
an
it.
integration making.
Yeah, I totally agree. Amanda, you heard that.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Doug, Katie, John.